It was born in the shadows, forged from the dreams of a new era in warfare. The RAH-66 Comanche, a ghost in the sky, nearly invisible to radar, striking before the enemy even knew it was there. Blades that whispered through the air, weapons hidden behind the stealth panels, and advanced avionics, decades ahead of their time. Its cockpit was a digital command center, eyes in every direction and information in real time. It could talk to drones, coordinate strikes, slip beneath radar nets without leaving a trace, armor that absorbed radar and engines that barely left a thermal signature. It could scout, strike, and vanish, all in one heartbeat. And then, silence. After decades of development and billions of dollars, the Comanche was grounded. Not by war, but by those that needed it. Too advanced, too expensive, too soon. The skies never saw what it could truly become. What was meant to redefine the battlefield became a ghost of what could have been. Its hangars went dark. Its blades stopped turning. No farewell, no final mission, just silence and dust. An apex predator caged before it ever hunted. But not all is lost, because in War Thunder the Comanche lives on. You can feel the silent glide, unleash its hidden firepower, and command the future that never was. Grounded in reality, but reborn in battle. This guide may not reach the front page, it may not get millions of views, but if you're watching this, you're keeping its legacy alive. You're learning how to fly it right, how to make it deadly, and in doing so, you're giving the Comanche the missions it never had. Fly it. Fight with it. Master its systems. And earn its silence. Let every battle be the one it was never given. And remember what we almost had. Meet the RAH-66 Comanche. A joint venture by Boeing and Sikorsky, built to be the ultimate scout helicopter. It started in the 1980s. The US Army launched the LHX program to replace the aging Hueys, Cobras, and Kiowas. A total of 6,000 production of vehicles was projected. The requirements? Simple. Empty weight of 7,500 pounds or less, maximum average production cost of $7.5 million US, incorporating the stealth technologies, and at the end, ease of access during the maintenance. Two companies were chosen, the joint designs of Boeing with Sikorsky and the Bell with McDonnell Douglas. The winner was Boeing Sikorsky. The rewards were the $2.8 billion contract for 6 prototypes and the name designation RAH-66, which only 2 prototypes were made. Much of the 1980s was spent on its design, and by the 1991, the projected aircraft production was reduced to 1,300. The first production LHX was expected to arrive in the Army in 1998. As the program proceeded, the helicopter's arrival was delayed many times due to the US Army reducing the yearly funding and adding more additional requirements. There were a lot of problems with the unconventional natures of this helicopter, but at the end it was successful. There were no major accidents, and the helicopter met all of the requirements and, in some cases, exceeded them. The only problem was the tail rotor system, which, after many evaluations and revised modifications, alongside the addition of the longbow radar, which was recently added to the list of requirements, in general, the new modifications deemed to be successful. The next step of the helicopter's development was the Engineering and Manufacturing Development Phase, or the EMD. During the EMD phase, 2 aircraft prototypes tested out a variety of EMDs. The brand new LHTE CT-800 engines was tested on the first helicopter with 377.5 hours, with the second one being able to test out the conventional electronic systems, night vision piloting systems, and etc. for 311 hours of flight testing. During its lifetime, it also had plenty of software and internal computer upgrades as well, to keep itself up with the commercial computer sector. This would eventually come up as a lot of software bugs. At this point, a lot of people were starting to question the scope of the program and where was the program even going. The support from the US Army and the generals was absolutely high. However, the constant delays and lack of management alongside the fall of the Soviet Union and the United States shifting its focus from Soviet and Chinese anti-air such as the Tor M1 and the Tunguska to war on terror and a bunch of people that don't even understand the difference between a tornado and a fucking rotor wash. Oh, damn. It's, hold on, where's the script? And of course, who can forget, the crazy budget that this program was sucking up was starting to become a problem as well. Sadly, this program was ultimately cancelled in 2004. The Army realized that they could have used the same money that they were pouring in the Comanche project into upgrading the already existing fleet of Apaches. It may have been cancelled, but the innovations that came with the Comanche were beyond anything we had at that time. But what are the innovations? Well, for starters, let's address the elephant in the room, the stealth technology. Generally, the stealth of this helicopter relied on 4 factors: the radar cross-section, infrared signatures, acoustic signatures, and visual differences compared to the other helicopters. As everyone knows, moving parts in a vehicle, especially fast-moving parts such as fan blades or rotor blades, generally cause quite a lot of trouble for the radar cross-section of your aircraft. Miss Pickety Stealth doesn't wait. Shut up! Fan blades of an engine is one major weakness that, if designed improperly, can backfire on you really hard. The biggest problem that exists on a helicopter when it comes to making it stealth is its only method of movement, the rotor blades. The rotor blades had to be redesigned entirely to not only reduce the radar cross-section as much as possible, but also reduce the acoustic noise that it made, as well as making the helicopter a lot more maneuverable than your conventional rotorcraft. But we'll get into the rotors a little bit later. Outside of that, the fuselage shaping, radar absorbent materials, and retractable landing gear and armaments made this helicopter into a machine that had the radar cross-section of— wait, hold on, let me just activate my Swedish VPN. Logic Freebox LCF 95 watts 25 each has for $2,000 for a fucking fridge? Guys, are you out of your fucking minds?
What did I do?
Or 360 times smaller than the Apache, which is the equivalent of 4 adult golden retrievers and a puppy. Yes, anything but Matrix. Obviously, many information about what type of radar it was used and band, frequency, and range are all classified. But what we have right now is public information and warthunder, which I'll eventually test out the stealth capabilities and like IR signature and all these kinds of stuff in a totally different video. The IR signature of this helicopter is simply phenomenal. Thanks to its state-of-the-art exhaust cooling system integrated into the tail, excellent air intake placement, and overall highly efficient and incredible ventilation system, the helicopter didn't require any IR jamming equipment. Just a simple radar warning receiver so the pilot could understand what is firing at him. Only if an aircraft similar to this would have had this feature. When it came to acoustic signature though, they used a variable speed 5-bladed main rotary system, and of course a fantail specifically designed to reduce the high-pitch siren effect of the existing tail fans. If you've ever played something similar to the Chinese helicopters, you can pretty much understand what is that noise. The visual signature of this aircraft was specifically designed to be small enough to be roughly the same size as a Kiowa from the front, and at the same time, the canopy glass of the rotor blades reduced the glint and flicker effect respectively. Both pilots were able to operate the helicopter all by themselves, without each other. This helicopter also had up to 20 times greater resistance to EMP compared to the other rotorcrafts at that time. It also had 2 pairs of retractable section on this helicopter. I mean, if you also want to add up the tail landing gear and the cannon at the front, you basically have 3 pairs. One was the main landing gear and the other was the internal weapons bay. When the helicopter was on a reconnaissance mission, the internal weapons bay would be its only choice. However, when it came to combat mode, it was able to carry out a pair of external wing pylons, which was able to carry out either more fuel tank or more armaments for longer range missions. I will talk about the armaments a little bit further into this video. When it comes to the transportability, it was very good when it came to shoving them in a C5 Galaxy and move them somewhere else. Seriously, I never understood that guy who wanted this heli to fly across the Atlantic. What kind of out-of-touch dumbass? Either way, the module placement, doors, access panels, and whatnot made it a lot better in maintenance, thanks in large part to the advanced fuselage design which, speaking of its fuselage, it was absolutely unusual and unconventional for its time. Unlike other helicopters, or planes for that matter, it was decided that this exterior section would not be the main fuselage, but instead, this would be the main one. Now let me TLDR this entire section for you. Basically a fuselage within a fuselage. Some made fun of it that this made it a bit too heavy, but we all know how this ended up in War Thunder. I just love the fact that there's a part in the interior fuselage called MOG. Now let's have a look at the main rotor. The main rotor over here is entirely new. Now, you know, sometimes I go into these rants about the semi-rigid rotary systems, mass bumping, or fully articulated rotary systems with a ground resonance, or rigid rotary systems having a lot more wear and tear and stuff. Yeah, majority of these conventional helicopters use either 3 of these rotary systems. Unless you count the odd ones out, of course. The Comanche, on the other hand, used a different system. It was an invention called the Pentaflex. Majority of the conventional helicopters in the military, or at least the ones that use the fully articulated rotary systems, use bearings to allow the rotor blades for lead, lag, pitch, and flap. Now the bearings need lubrication in order to keep them going, requiring plenty of maintenance. In the 1960s, they tried to replace this with the elastometric bearings that required no lubrication, first being used on the CH-53D and then on the tail of the Blackhawk. I'm not sure how successful it was, but they decided to use this on the Comanche as well. Now they also decided to change the rotor hinge offset from your conventional 5 degrees to 10 degrees. This was an LHX requirement to make it more maneuverable, hence why you can see this thing maneuvering relatively well in War Thunder. But that's not just the main rotor. The tail rotor itself is an entire beast in itself. Every time you crash your main rotors on the ground and then use the tail to lift yourself up, you seriously wonder, how the f can this thing do it? Well, let's talk about the tail rotor. A fantail that had several goals in mind. It had to be effective in high altitudes, unlike the helicopters at that time that simply ran out of tail control power and altitude. It should perform a 180-degree yaw turn while flying sidewind at 45 knots, which is roughly 83 kilometers, which was a lot higher than what they used to on the normal helis at that time. And of course, they wanted to have a protected tail rotor so soldiers in stressful situations wouldn't just chop their heads off. Though I'm gonna be real with you, if I was somebody that was working on a Chinook and if I saw this face, man, I wish there was a tail rotor on that thing. Boeing Sikorsky's solution to this was a 4.5 foot diameter fantail. Using this fantail wasn't really impressive because it was already used on other conventional helicopters, and they were known for their loud siren noise. Their solution was to give enough distance between the supporting struts and the fan, which pretty much made the noise a lot better than what people expected. The tail rotor was so powerful that a brand new maneuver was entirely made for the helicopter called the snap turn. The Army's requirement was to do a quick turn to the target to maneuver at moderate speeds. It was a simple roll into a 90 degrees turn, then roll out and line up with a target. This helicopter not only managed to do that, but also could just simply yaw 90 degrees at 70 knots, 129 kilometers per hour. F me, dude. I do this with an R-22 Robinson and MD-500, I'll die from cardiac arrest. Holy shit. The snap turn maneuver became the favorite of pilots flying the aircraft. The other feature includes the state-of-the-art fly-by-wire system and the insane transmission system, a very robust and solid mission equipment package that helped the Comanche acquire the targets a lot faster and better than the AH-64, mission electronics that had a highly redundant, fault-tolerant architecture, outside of the times that it wasn't having software bugs, a nose-mounted 20mm XM301 gun, derived from this worthless piece of shit, that could rotate 180 degrees for stowing in a low observable position, which we currently don't have in the fucking game. There were some side projects that Sikorsky did at the same time for testing some stuff on this helicopter. For example, the Shadow Project, which had the flight controls of the LHX and a single pilot cockpit grafted on the front of an S-76 helicopter. Now, let me quote this part. In an interesting experiment, it had been found out that the experienced pilots did have issues with transitioning to this new control concept, which was basically nap of the Earth control system on the Comanche. So a number of non-pilots were tested with a new system. They took the system much easier. The conclusion was that young Army pilots with experience with video games and electronic controllers could pick up the system with little problems. U.S. Army, please, if you can, the only thing you can do is just save my ass from this guy.
Who was mentioning me, you pussy?
Oh no, he just fucking noticed me.
I can smell a virgin over here. Who are you, son? Get over here.
Outside of that, they also tested out the fantail itself on another S-76 as well, which got such ridiculous results, the pilot himself was absolutely impressed on how you can pull a maneuver in 2.2 seconds when the requirements were only 6. Honestly, it's a tragedy to see this helicopter not shine in the real world. Kinda similar to the Su-47 or the Mi-28. I wonder what the Russians did with that prototype helicopter after the Cold War. But yeah, there's nothing a drone can't do when it comes to scout and reconnaissance helicopters. Technology is moving forward really fast, and the best thing we can do is to just cry like a bitch or fight in the forums about the fact that this thing carried out 28 Stingers instead of 16. Gaijin win. Now let's get on with the armors and modules. Welcome to the Armor and Modular Protection Analysis, where we basically analyze the armors and modules inside of a vehicle. Today's helicopter is the RAH-66 Comanche. Alright, now before I start anything, let me talk about the armor a little bit. So Gaijin decided to add the Comanche with this armor layout in the dev server. Stuff has gone so interesting that right now there's nothing left but two 20mm plates behind the pilots. But what you need to understand about the armor protection on this thing is that it does the job. Except the fact that if somebody sneezes 2 continents away from your position, your tail gets instantly chopped off. You land too fast, your tail gets instantly chopped off. Somebody shoots at you, your tail gets instantly chopped off. Some random girl ejects you, your tail gets instantly chopped off. You simply f***ing die from old age, your tail gets instantly chopped. Look how they massacred my boy. My man went from being a John Redcorn role-playing as Rambo to just a simplified lizard. I really felt like this part might take a lot of your time, so I will leave this discussion of armor nerf and Gaijin's inconsistency at the end of the video. For now, the first thing we need to take a look at is the crew. Unlike your conventional helicopter in the American tree, the pilot is situated on the front of the helicopter while the gunner is located in the back. At least that's how Warthunder says it, because in real life, both of them could operate the helicopter without any kind of problems. The crew has CCIP on all of its weapons, including EEGS for the gun. It has optics with 63.5 times zoom, alongside night vision and thermals, with TV and FLIR systems, an AN/APR-39 radar warning receiver with E and M bands and IFF identifications, helmet-mounted sight, a laser designator with SPI, and an AN/AVR-2 laser warning receiver. Thankfully, this stealth aircraft does actually have radar and laser warning receivers, unlike this piece of shit. Unfortunately, this helicopter does not have any kind of countermeasures. Therefore, it does not have any type of missile approach warning systems. Also just like this piece of shit. Oh yeah, and it doesn't have IRCMs or anything. Also just like this fucking piece of shit. As explained, the reason why they didn't include any countermeasures in it was because of the radar cross-section and the infrared signature being so low that they consider not to add any countermeasures to it. This is not the first time that they did it, and we all know what happened when you don't do that. This helicopter has a single, thin, self-sealing fuel tank with neutral gas pressurization systems situated at the center of the helicopter with these fuel presets. Despite having a low volume fuel tank, it managed to roughly have the same fuel presets as your conventional American helicopters. So don't worry about losing fuel on this one at all. And even if you're set on fire, I'm sure that the fire extinguisher will be a good friend, since this helicopter does in fact have fire extinguishers. This helicopter has LHTEC T800-LHT-801 engines that have special characteristics with regards to their collective pitch and engine RPM management. Just so you know, any type of extreme maneuver can send the engine RPM into very high numbers, which can affect your engine's health. I will talk about the flight performance and the engine behaviors a little bit later into this video. Now let's have a look at the miscellaneous modules on this helicopter, with the first one being the 2 electrical optical stations. If either of these fail, your targeting optics will be disabled. Next, you have the flight control systems on both pilots and the gunner. If the frontal module gets damaged, your guidance weapon control and your weapon control will be totally disabled. And if the dorsal module gets damaged, your MFD and HUD will be entirely disabled. Next, we have the 2 frontal avionics blocks situated on the left and right side of the gunner. The left one is responsible for weapons control, while the right one is for the guidance weapon control. And then you have the other 2 avionics blocks situated on the center back of the helicopter. The left one is responsible for NVDs and thermals, while the other one is for the MFDs and HUD. Damage any of these and the responsible systems will be disabled. At the end, you have the massive and tiny oil cooling systems, the main transmission, the superb and complicated propeller shaft that took me way too much time to design, and of course the traction of the control surfaces, and last but not the least, the auxiliary power unit. As of now, the APU doesn't have any use on War Thunder, and disabling it won't have any effect, unless the performance changes. And honestly, I kind of feel like Gaijin is playing some things with the auxiliary power unit, but it is really nice to have it in the module itself. And finally, you have the AN/APG-78 longbow radar. Same radar that is also used on the later models of the Apache and, well, potentially the AH-1Z, but that never happened. This radar, if used correctly, can give you plenty of advantages and disadvantages. For one, it has the maximum of 8 kilometers of range, but you can only detect the target at 7.2 kilometers at best case scenario. It has different radar presets and decent scanning angles. This, alongside the 3 different modes and quick optical slaving, makes it a useful weapon in simulator battles, if used correctly. This radar was mounted on the helicopter for mainly 2 reasons. One, to slay the radar-guided AGM-114L Hellfire missiles, and of course, detecting enemy targets. I will talk about the variants of the Hellfires and its weaponry fairly soon. For now, let's get on with the armaments of the helicopter. Before I start, let's go to the control settings on the aircraft section and bind the open bomb bay door to your desired key to get ready to fire your internal weapons and close them once you need to. This is a lot useful in realistic game mode, as in arcade they will just simply open and close automatically. Let's start with the unguided rockets, with 2.75-inch M247 Hydra Rockets, installed both on the outer and internal weapons bay pylons, 4 pods on the outer pylons, and 1 on each 6 internal pylons, 14 pods in total, with 4 rockets per pod, which gives you 56 rockets. The Hydras are fairly decent rockets. They have a good penetration of 290 millimeters, alongside the nice speed and explosive mass, plus the semi-decent quantity makes it a somewhat reliable choice for rocketeering. However, there are 2 major problems that you must consider before picking them up. The outer rocket pods might increase your radar cross-section to a washing machine and 8 Hydra rocket pods, and the fact that you can replace only 4 rockets for a Hellfire honestly makes me question the fact that it isn't even a good choice to pick up the rockets. Oh yeah, and the fact that the CCIP doesn't show the correct position of the rockets, yeah. Personally, I wouldn't pick them up unless it's on the outer pylons, which, again, it depends on you. Up next, we have the AIM-92 Stingers, 1 pod installed on all pylons. Each pod is with 2 Stingers, giving you 16 Stingers in total. Now I can hear y'all in the comments. Berleezy? This should be the same as E10. Oh, hell no, miss me with that bullshit. At least that motherfucker has some good air-to-air missiles, you stupid. The ATAS or the AIM-92 Stingers are the man pads that have 13 Gs of pull, have a very good range, however, they do not have any kind of proxy fuse at all. While yes, they can be quite nice for shooting down enemy aircrafts that are not paying attention or just helicopters that don't have directional IRCMs, they can be easily dodged if the enemy plane knows what he's doing. Outside of that, they do the job quite fine. And in my opinion, 16 is a bit of an overkill, considering the fact that on the both outer pylons you can only carry out 4 Stingers. Now let me ask you a question. Which exchange is better? 4 Stingers instead of 8 Hellfires, or 4 Stingers instead of 2 Hellfires? Once again, it depends on you. But personally, if I want to go on a full Hellfire loadout, I would pick up the Stingers on the internal weapons bay. This way I can have 4 Stingers and 12 ATGMs, or 8 Stingers and 10 Hellfires, instead of 4 Stingers and 6 of them. And then, you have the AGM-114B Hellfire. Just like the Hydra Rockets, installed on both the outer and internal weapons bay pylons, 4 on each of the outer pylons and 1 on each of the 6 internal pylons, giving you 14 Hellfires in total. Now before I start, let me clarify several things. There are 2 types of information about the Comanche. One is public information, and the other is classified information. Public information is basically those that are shown to the public. For example, the quantity of Hellfires, general information such as the basic model of the engine, the estimation of the top speed, and etc. The classified information is basically that type of information that is only available to some members of the armed forces with a specific security clearance. This includes the details and specifications of a project. For example, the type of Hellfire the Comanche used, specific angles of the radar cross-section at different angles and whatnot, the Hellfire's exact performance, Longbow's radar presets and performances on that helicopter, and many more. Unfortunately, the variants of the armaments that are used on the Comanche are all classified. this means that we really cannot determine that if it ever used things such as the AGM-114B, M, K, or the radar-guided Hellfire, or even the APK-WS2s for that matter. For this reason, Gaijin has decided to pick up the most basic Hellfire ever possible. Now let me put this in an example so you can understand. Imagine your F-16C only being limited to AIM-9L and nothing else. The AIM-9L still can do the job, but it's so annoying, oh my god. A Hellfire that is considered ancient technology compared to the K and went out of service as soon as the K Hellfires came in 1993. And one of the reasons why they added the radar on top was also because of the compatibility with the L variants of the Hellfire, but we don't really have any kind of documents that says that they ever tested out the L variants of the Hellfires. Unless some guy that, leaks classified information. Wait, hey, stop doing that! So what would the difference between the B and the K Hellfires be? No, not that B, this B. Well, for starters, in-game it's nothing more than 100mm of extra pen and a tandem charge warhead, which honestly I don't think the tandem warhead matters that much because the explosive mass on the B Hellfire is so punchy it might as well just not give a shit. In real life, the K Hellfire is fully digital, has 11 to 10 kilometers of range, while the B Hellfire is completely analog and only has 8 kilometers of range. Also, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but when the Hellfires fly past 8 kilometers, they don't just simply explode like it is in the game. Instead, they glide towards the designated position. This feature was available on the B variants of the Hellfires in real life. We don't even have this feature on the K variants in the game. Don't even get me started on the pointless lofting that flies into the atmosphere, then dives on the ground, only to simply engage in the enemy in the same angle you would fire a direct flight path missile, rendering the whole lofting thing totally pointless and wasting my missile's energy and my goddamn time. Alright, okay, let me see what other historical inaccuracies we have in helicopters. Oh, yeah, alright. The AH-64 and AH-1F should have Gen 1 thermals. Where the hell is my APK-WS2s with the M247 warheads and the 19-pod variants on the Apache? F it, K-50 can have proxy fuses. Why not my APK-WS2s? Alright, what else? Oh, yeah, Mi-8 Montage VN missing its LMUR missiles, or Loomer missiles or whatever. K-50 missing its S-13OF. K-52 missing its HMS in the R-73, though I'm not sure about the R-73 part. Oh, and I almost forgot. Manpad's acting like a piece of shit. Either way, the Hellfires have a very good penetration, excellent explosive mass, and a very nice speed. I only wish you could use that speed properly instead of wasting my fucking time. The Hellfire's got one major problem. Now, I'm not sure if it's because of my bad ping or not, but if you simply track the target using your mouse only, there's a high chance that the Hellfire will probably miss the target. However, if you want to lock the enemy using the Iris-T, no, not that thing, this thing, you can pinpoint the exact position you want to hit the enemy, given if the enemy is not moving that much. Mastering the Hellfire might take some time, but at the end, it is definitely worth it. Also, pro tip if you want to fight against the anti-airs or Pansirs or Tungushkas, if you are against a Pansir, I would highly recommend you to pick up your external Hellfire pylons, as your radar cross-section is completely pointless against that anti-air. However, if you are against a Tungushka or a Toem-1, I would highly recommend you to only pick up the internal Hellfires, and fire them out quick and then retract your weapons bay. The enemy anti-air may not be able to see you above 6.5 kilometers. However, they can still identify your Hellfires on their radar. So make sure that you throw enough Hellfires at them so they can start panic and they die. But at the same time, watch out for the enemy aircrafts that want to shoot you down as well. I will talk about the game modes a little bit further into this video. And finally, the main gun on this helicopter, the XM301 Gatling cannon, with 500 rounds of ammunition with 2 separate rate of fires, one being 750 and the other one being 1500 rounds per minute. This cannon is quite nice for engaging lightly armored targets or even aircrafts.
I like this piece of shit.
And thankfully, we are able to destroy the incoming aircraft by simply locking on them. However, the gun itself overheats very quick compared to the BMP-2 cannon on the K-50 or the Bushmaster on the Apache. The gun jams up after firing for 9 seconds consecutively, while with low fire rate only being 17 seconds. For that reason, I would highly recommend you to give it a little bit of a break to the cannon or switch to a low fire rate. Now let's get on with the mobility. When it comes to the mobility of the helicopter, I have to say it is absolutely phenomenal. Hell, I can even argue that this thing is one of the best helicopters in the game when it comes to maneuverability, with the Chinese helis being the first, and the Eurocopters and G-Links being very close in the third place. The reason why is that the G-Links to the Eurocopters feel relatively light or moderate for their engines. The Comanche, on the other hand, is heavy for its engines, which I'll get into it, don't worry. When you fly this helicopter, it feels absolutely incredible. It really sits well in your hand and it feels extremely extremely responsive. The top speed of this helicopter is somewhere around 310 kilometers per hour, but that does not stop the helicopter from going ridiculously fast in a simple yet effective dive. Not to mention the fact that it automatically retracts your landing gear above 230 to 240 kilometers per hour. And speaking of the landing gear, normally I would say that you should keep them open if you're flying too low. Who knows, maybe you're going to hit the ground or a place, so in that case, the landing gear would be your makeshift shock absorber in exchange for some speed. With this helicopter, on the other hand, I think it's absolutely necessary to retract them because 1. You have enough maneuver and mobility to shift your blame to skill issue instead of the helicopter. And 2, if you don't, then your radar cross-section would turn into a washing machine with 3 gigantic landing gears, and Hydras or Hellfires depending on what you carry. Necessary tangents in the middle of the mobility aside, the fantail on this thing allows you to do some ridiculous side maneuvers that only a handful of helicopters can accomplish. I'm talking maneuvers like this, or just simply using your fantail while your collective pitch is at 100%, going 180 to 200 kilometers per hour forward. Yeah, like the Mi-28 wishes it could do that on the opposite side of its rotors. This thing is truly a Chinese helicopter maneuverability if the laws of physics were applied properly. However, sorry to burst your bubble, but this also comes at a very expensive cost: the engine RPM management. When you do an extreme maneuver on this helicopter, due to the simple fact that the helicopter is really heavy for its engines, the engine RPM can go up to yeah. And when you try to compensate for it, the engines can go below 70% RPM as well. There's a high chance that if your engine RPM is above 130%, you may over-rev them and fry them out, which can pretty much happen all the time if you're not careful. And on the other hand, you can also stall out the engines if your RPM goes too low. To be honest, I rarely saw the Comanche stall out its engines completely similar to the K-50s, but there is still a slight chance. And in that case, if you are at a very high RPM, increase your collective pitch as much as you can. And when you see the engine RPMs dropping really hard, decrease your collective pitch. If you can micromanage these things, I'm pretty sure that you can have a stable RPM and not have a lot of problems with regards to the controls of the helicopter. The pitch control is really amazing, the yaw control is incredible, and the roll rate is just simply perfect. Now let's get on with the game modes. When it comes to the Heli PvE, this helicopter can do it all. Sure, you may not have the best quantity of missiles or rockets among the other helicopters, but in this game mode, this helicopter is a jack of all trades and master of shitting on this piece of shit game mode that hasn't been touched by Gaijin in 2 years. What the fuck? Let's go through all of the 5 objectives that this game mode has and see how this helicopter can shine. Let's start with destroying the enemy assaults and defenses. In this objective, when it comes to the enemy defense, the only thing that matters is the quantity of your missiles and rockets, and how fast you can deploy them. If you want to go for a dedicated assault, I would recommend you to pick up 6 Hellfires alongside the rocket pods on the outer pylons. The anti-tank guns can be easily dealt with the Hydras or your cannon, and the SPAs can be easily destroyed using the Hellfires. Your Hellfire deployments is also fast, as you can chain fire them every 5 seconds to destroy the anti-airs faster. When it comes to the enemy assault, on the other hand, the quality of your munitions is going to be the most important part of your engagement. Best you can pick up is going to be max Hellfires alongside some Stingers, just in case if you want to go and play duck hunt in a helicopter. Which, speaking of Stingers, destroying the enemy attackers and bombers is going to be something you can easily do without sacrificing too much of your Hellfires. If you want to go fully dedicated anti-air, pick up 16 Stingers. However, if you want to also do damage to some ground targets, feel free to pick up 8 Hellfires on the outer pylons, allowing you to destroy 2 entire squadrons of bombers or attackers, and at the same time have something to say when it comes to ground attacking. Destroying the enemy bases is meh. I mean, don't get me wrong, it can very much do it. But I have to be honest with you, unless you're bored or have nothing to destroy, I can recommend you to pick up Hellfires and dump it on the bases. But personally, I wouldn't really recommend it. Destroying the enemy convoys is going to be easy. However, just like the Apache and every single stereotypical Hellfire carrier, you always need to be careful of those clustered convoys that threw their AI pathfinding into the fucking toilet. Once you run out of ammo, you can easily take out the M113s using your cannon. However, I'm afraid that it's going to be a little bit hard to say the same about the main battle tanks, or even the Gepards for that matter. Landing and capturing the enemy base is going to be the easiest thing you can do in this helicopter. While the others try their best to slowly approach the base, you simply come in incredibly fast, do a sharp turn, and then land like a champ, hopefully not losing your tail. Your maneuverability and your very good top speed allows you to do some extreme maneuvers. The only thing that's left is going to be your skill and how you approach it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, post-editing Bob Dickinson over here. Now, I wanted to talk about the Comanche's armor a little bit more. And Gaijin's inconsistencies are just, you know, they're kind of annoying and they're terrible as well. But then the entire voice itself went out to like 2.5 hours, which was just absolutely ridiculous. Honestly, yeah, I don't want to take too much of your time. It's going to be like probably 1 or 2 minutes. So Gaijin basically added the Comanche as this type of armor layout. And I think Bruce Leroy also made a video about it as well. It was so ridiculous that like that thing, it's in some angles was just 50 cal proof. The only thing you could possibly damage in though was like engines or just tail getting chopped off occasionally. It was utter ridiculous. And then after some minor fixes, they basically fixed the entire armor, I guess. Now, here's the thing, right? I personally think, right now, a lot of people might disagree with me on this. I personally think that having this much armor on a helicopter, not sure how realistic that is, or if it even isn't, or if it was installed or not. And I've read it in the Comanche's forums that it wasn't installed in real life. I totally understand why Gaijin nerfed the armor. However, I also wonder why did they took them this long to actually nerf out the tail of the K-50 and whatnot, where, you know, if you shut down the entire tail, which included the electronics inside of it and whatnot, you would still be able to shoot down the enemies. The helicopter would be totally stable. There would be no shakes and whatnot, and the center of mass of that helicopter was totally fine, and there was no problem with it at all. I seriously wonder why did it took them this long to fix the Vickers missile's maneuverability on the K-50, where before the nerf, it was literally more effective than ADAT's missiles. I'm not really implying things over here. I just feel like Gaijin's inconsistencies just genuinely piss me off. And now you might say, but Bob, if you want to fix something or just do something about all these things, you would just simply go into War Thunder forums and talk about it. Well, yeah, you generally would, if the forums would actually do their things properly. You see, here's the thing about the War Thunder forums, right? You pick up a topic, for example, the X-Plane had this thing and we want this thing to be here and I think it is necessary to be added over here. And then on the other side, where somebody, meaning some random ass nation or just nation that you play opposite of it, some guy from there comes in, starts shitting on you, shitting on the plane, says that it doesn't need it, says that it this and that and whatnot, and the person that's supposed to be on your side also throws feces at the other guy. And then the arguments come up of, hey, realism or gameplay or game balance, and like, we want the game to be more realistic and all these kinds of stuff. I kid you not, stuff gets so ridiculous that you can literally read about the F-16's 45 degrees angle of attack in the Comanche's f***ing forums. Honestly, I'm just a normal player who just loves to make videos and whatnot. I just love editing in general. I don't have all this time and crap to like argue with people online and whatnot. So if you want to do something, either, I don't know, go to War Thunder forums and argue all the time, or just go to War Thunder support, write down a ticket, and like with good proof and good evidence, you can do these kinds of stuff. But yeah, eventually some of these forums, not all of them, but some of them actually end up with like classified documents leaked into the, which by the way, please do not leak classified information, you're gonna get into trouble. The last thing you want is an entire government agency being on your ass just because your F-16 couldn't turn better, or I don't know, your Comanche had 28 Stingers instead of 16 in a video game. Like, Gaijin has to decide if it wants to go towards realism or a video game. And the thing is, right, it's a video game. It shouldn't really supposed to be realism or anything. If somebody wants realism, just, I don't know, go play DCS or some shit. But either way, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this was useful. I'm pretty sure this is not news to you, but yeah. Anyway, back to the video. Either way, let's get on with the ground RB.
In the south side we lay, on the sands we emerge like a Soviet rise with thunderous beats, and the fire in our eyes, the winds carry tales of the battles we've won. In the sands with the night, we'll shine like the sun. With Benton and the strings making legends unfold. Each note is our heartbeat, our stories retold. In the center's embrace, our spirits combine. With the melody feels like the stars they align. Under the days of sky we rise and defire. With its heavy guitars and the moonlight fire. Echoes of the ancient pyramids that we play. Uniting the rhythms that we break through the gray. Feel the passion ignite, the power to play. In this land of the brave, we carry the flame. With a heart full of rhythm, a soul made of steel. Let the music take flight, let the world know we're real.
When it comes to ground realistic battles, this helicopter is situated at somewhat of a meh position. This helicopter is at battle rating 11.3, at a place where only limited amount of vehicles are at this BR, such as the M1A1, the IPM, or if you're either rich or mentally sane enough to go through the Merkava Mark 3D or AGS, you can have those things as well. Better and iconic vehicles are either at 11.7 or 12.0, such as the HSTVL, other HSTVLs and M1A1s that are on the right side of the screen. Yeah, I can see you, Jimmy, spending ton of money on a lineup that feels like a nipple twist. I'm not saying that 10.0 or 10.7 vehicles are bad or anything. In fact, they're very good. You have plenty of them as well, but there is a certain limit on how much you can up BR a vehicle. Also, I don't understand why people hate the 120S. It has Gen 2 thermals, it has a very good round, it has a very good cannon, it has a Oh. Never mind, I'm picking up the Bradley. Oh, and I almost forgot about the anti-airs. Usually your anti-airs are stuck between 10.0 or 11.7 and upwards. So if you want to make it into a lower BR lineup, you have to pick up either this hunk of trash alongside this glorious bastard, or if you want to go higher, you can either pick up the drugged out Bradley, or the claw system that not only is on the ground, but is also in the air, following your aircraft everywhere you go. If you want to go higher than that, you can pick up any vehicle you like. However, going up means that you also have to improve your helicopters as well. Majority of the top tier helicopters in the US are very similar to their core function. Hence why every time you see a top tier American helicopter being added, people just say that it's just another Hellfire carrier. I mean, honestly, they're not really wrong. There are some minor differences between them that only a helicopter nerd like me would probably care about. But at the end, if you like to pick up the Comanche, feel free to do so, as it's not really a bad helicopter either. So how does the gameplay look like in Ground RB? Well, you have several ways to approach the battlefield. One is to use your rocket pods and do a rocket rush. Two is to use all of your stingers, hide like a bitch in the back, while making sure that no aircraft or helicopter can mess around in the battlefield. Oh, never mind, they just shifted the spawns 2 continents away from your position. Or 3, pick up an ATGM loadout and start doing what helicopters do in Ground RB. Hover, fire, land, hover, fire, die, hover, fire, kill, die, hover, fire, kill, and repeat. Honestly, if you can, change your position from your usual helipad from time to time. Also, try to see if you can make the radar work as well. Look, I know it's a little bit hard and might take some time, but it's always these trials and errors where you can find a proper and appropriate playstyle and good positions to your liking. Outside of that, watch out for the enemy helicopters and aircrafts. Watch out for the modern anti-airs that, as soon as they see you, you might as well be dead than anything else, and good luck on the battlefield. At the end, ladies and gentlemen, is this helicopter really worth it? Honestly, I will say this, if you've purchased the Apache already or have the equivalent of an Apache, you really don't need it. I really have to be honest with you, the stealth is nothing but just a gimmick. The armament count is lower than the Apache and the cannon is slightly worse. On the other hand, the Comanche does have a radar, it has a very good stinger to Hellfire conversion quantity, and of course, if you just look at this thing, it feels absolutely incredible. It handles like a champ, it looks like a champ, and generally, it did not disappoint me when I needed this helicopter to perform. Except for whatever reason, the tail gets chopped off way too often than usual. And of course, the entire situation with the armor of this helicopter, which we've already talked about it. At the end, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this video. Now, before I finish this video, I would like to thank my friend Willie for gifting me this helicopter before the patch was even on. And I would like to thank my friend Reaper for helping me out on giving the information on the Comanches when the dev server was on. And unfortunately, I really couldn't download the dev server because, well, God bless the Iranian internet, I guess. And at the end, I would like to thank warthunder VR for sending me this incredible footage and helping me out quite a lot during the production of the video. Also, before I just finish everything up, I basically made a skin for the RAH-66. This is also the skin that you're seeing in the footage. If you're interested or just like the skin, you can right now download it in live.warthunder or just link in the description down below. At the end, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to like and subscribe, dislike it if you dislike it, and if you want to support my channel and my work even further, you can also donate to Super Thanks or join my YouTube membership if you want to. For now, this is me, Bob Dickinson, and thank you for watching.
No shadow, no sound. He's already gone. Comanche dust shall never see till hellfire rains down silently. no sound, no rush. Stalking shadows through the trees, warfare born from native pride. Bob brings thunder you can't hide. To the great spirit in the sky, he sends his enemies to fly. Missiles whisper, rotors hush. Death comes fast, no sound, no rush.